I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you.
Okay.
This is fun for me. Probably the funnest one I've done. Andy Hill.
You've got a bunch of them.
I know, but you're probably the funnest because you knew me. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. We started coaching at Missouri right around the same time. But Andy Hill, Missouri royalty,
Mm,
what I call you. Trenton, Missouri native, and walked on at Missouri, lettered 4 years, played receiver, and then you got into coaching, and amongst other things, I mean, you were the head coach, you're the offense coordinator, head coach at Hutchinson Community College there in the Jayhawk League. Is this still the Jayhawk League?
I think so, yeah. I
Yeah.
believe it is.
And then you got hired as a receivers coach at Missouri in '96, and got Andy, I didn't know you were there for 24 years.
Yep, yep.
That's unbelievable. And then you went from Missouri, you went over to Kansas City to the Chiefs and worked with Tobe and was the assistant special teams coordinator and have 2 Super Bowl rings and
Yes.
um, in the Missouri Hall of Fame and all kinds of stuff. But you know what?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on. I kind of wanted. I think your perspective is, everybody's perspective that we have on is unique, but I think yours is kind of cool. And you know what story I tell everybody still to this day? The Kent Lehman story.
Oh, yeah.
When we were at camp and we had a receiver. I think he became a Secret Service agent, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I got a good story with that too.
Yeah. So, but Kent was this little white receiver, um, and in camp in August, it's super hot and super humid, and he was always a cramper, but he started cramping really, really bad. So he goes after practice. He goes to the hospital and gets a bunch of IVs. And I don't. Do you remember how many bags he had? Did he
I
have like 4 bags?
It looked like
But I'll
24.
Yeah, but you and I were rooming together, and we hear a knock on the door like 11 o'clock at night. It's Ken. And you remember how big his face was? I mean, Ken probably weighed what, 175, 180.
Yeah.
And when we opened that door, he looked like he weighed about 225 pounds.
Yeah.
It's so funny
He
to
was
think.
bloated from IV bags for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you
So
say that. Kent Lehman, one more final story with him. We were at the Super Bowl a year ago in New Orleans, and because Trump was going to the game, we had to go through metal detectors at the hotel, and Secret Service is part of that. So Kent Lehman asked to be at our Chiefs. He's based in Dallas now. Asked to be at the Chiefs hotel, and so I got to see Sarah. Got to see him. I got to see him, and it was pretty cool because he's still doing it. But he was on Obama detail
I knew that.
in the White House for a while, and so he's doing great.
Yeah, I think he wasn't he on the Obama's girls detail too?
Yes,
Wasn't he specific to that? Yeah.
yes,
And I'm sure,
exactly.
and people don't understand, like, that whole vetting process is crazy. I remember, I mean, the only reason I know he's in the Secret Service is because they called me. I mean,
Yep.
years, and I know they did you too, and the background checks that they do on people, I mean, I was like, I was kinda scared when the Secret Service people called me, and I'm like, "Wait, what happened?"
Yeah,
Um, but that's why we coach, isn't it?
absolutely. Guys like
So
him, he's a good man.
tell everybody kinda, I mean, I kinda went through it, but just tell everybody, kinda your journey into coaching, why you wanted to get into coaching and how that all came up and who was, kinda who was super influential in that decision.
Yeah, so, I was working, really when I got out of school, I tried out to play for the Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs in '85 and tried out for the Calgary Stampeders the next year, didn't make either squad. So I really worked in banks and investments for like the next 4 to 5 years, and I opened up an Edward Jones office in a small town in Missouri and kind of figured out that, making tons of money was not really a motivating factor for me, so I was fortunate enough to have a chance. A former coach of mine, receiver coach at Mizzou, was now at the time the offensive coordinator at SMU, and he got me on as a volunteer GA really in the springtime. Sam Pittman, who just was the head coach at Arkansas, at the same time got the Hutchinson Community College job, and so I was very fortunate to get hired. Right, we were getting married in '92 at Hutch. Like you said, I was assistant coach for a couple years, head coach for a couple years. Then Larry Smith was kind enough to hire me at the University of Missouri, back my alma mater in '96. Had worked summer camps. You know, I was the head coach at Hutch, and I brought
Right.
helmets and shoulder pads over to rent to the kids because at the time in high school in Missouri, you couldn't bring your own high school pads and shoulder pads and helmets, which makes no sense, obviously. But at the time, that's what the rules were. So I brought a big old U-Haul full of pads, and Coach Smith was able to see me coach a few times in the summertime. And then when the job came open, Eric Wright, who was the receiver coach at the time, uh, quit, retired, resigned, whatever you want to say. Then Coach was I was lucky enough to get on at Mizzou, and I was there, like you said, 24 years, through three head coaches: Larry Smith, Gary Pinkel, Barry Odom. And then in 2019, I was not retained by the current head coach at that time, and then got lucky enough to get on with the Kansas City Chiefs in COVID year 2020 was my first year there. Four Super Bowls in 5 years. We won two of them, lost two of them, but just a tremendous, I guess, crescendo to my coaching journey, and it was
Yeah.
very special way to finish up.
Before I ask about the other two, what was it like um, coaching for Barry Odom, who you actually coached in college? I mean, we both did, but um, being an assistant under a head coach that you were formerly a guy that
Yeah,
coached him and saw him grow up. Was
yeah.
that
So
cool? Or was that interesting?
it was interesting because yeah, really we coached together too before he got the job. So
Right.
it was kind of like you saw him from a coaching perspective. But it was very interesting. You know, I think that it was his first coaching job, and so I think he probably learned a lot in his steps as being a head coach at the time too. So it was very interesting because you're a peer, you coached him, and then you're a peer, then he's the head coach, and so we had certainly a different relationship than most guys that
Yeah.
we were coaching with.
Yeah. He still calls me coach, and I keep telling him, I'm like, Barry, you can call me Corby. Nope,
Yeah,
I'm calling
yeah,
you coach. I'm like, okay.
that's the way it
It's
goes.
weird for me. I'm like, but I want to talk because you were on the last team that you were a player at Missouri for the last team that went to a bowl game before we went to another bowl game in '97.
Yep,
So those 13 years of Missouri not going to bowl games and with Larry Smith, with my dad coming in, um, and kind of building that and getting us back to the bowl games and people knew we were going to be tough and we were going to run it down your throats and play action and on defense we were going to fly to the ball and all that kind of stuff and those last especially that last year that we were there before we got fired. I know we had a lot of young kids, we had a ton of injuries, but going through that process of a rebuild, um, with my dad. And I want to talk about Coach Pinkel because, there's a lot of coaches that I have respect for in this world. Two of the biggest ones that I have the most respect for are Gary Pinkel and Dick Tomey and Coach Tomey because they both followed my dad. Coach
yep,
Tomey at U of A, and then Pinkel came in and the amount of class and humility and just gracefulness that both of them, and especially Coach Pinkel, had for what we did, even though we got fired, um, is rare and it's special. So I want to talk about that transition. But what was it like, building that Missouri program that you played at? You were a part of the last team, building that up to where we were finally having some success. What was
yeah. I
that like?
think I was very fortunate to come in after the third year of Coach Smith's tenure at Mizzou. And at the time, there were several good players that they recruited already on campus. Brock Alibo, I think part of your book. There's a lot of Corby Jones. There's tremendous
Mhm.
talent that were already in place. So I think that if you look at that '97 team that went to the first bowl, like you said, in 13 years, uh, it really was holding everybody to a standard that Coach Smith did, and then having the ability, the players, the quality players that we had were able to overcome because I know that year we were 3-3. We got beat pretty soundly at Kansas State, and
Yeah.
then we won 4 of our last 5 games. I'll never forget the elation of getting bowl eligible at Colorado,
Colorado. Yeah.
and that was such a big win because I think we had to look back at the exact stats, but I know we held the ball for over 40 minutes of a 60-minute football game just by, like you said, running it down their throat and controlling the ball, taking care of it. And that was such an elation, great feeling as a coach knowing that finally you got back because of the quality of player, but also the standard that Coach Smith set in our, with the coaches and certainly with the team. Those guys overcame a lot to get to that point, and that was pretty
Yeah.
cool. That was we went to 2 bowl games in a row. And then kind of had a little, like you said, some young guys and kind of some transition to those old veteran players, Ron James, Harold Piercy, all the guys, Demonte Cross, all those players were now gone. So those young guys kind of went back and we had a little fallback. But then going on to what Coach Pinkel, I want to say this that, when Coach Pinkel got the job, he said immediately, he said that Larry Smith not taking Missouri to a couple of bowls, he would not have been even interested in the Missouri job at the time. So there's a lot of, like you said, respect between those kind of coaches that old school that have tremendous uh, track records, but also respect for each other.
Well, I think you'll probably agree with this, but there's certain head coaches. I mean, every head coach has their unique talent as a head coach, right? Some are builders, some are next level guys. Um, and my dad was a builder. I mean, he was a program builder. Like that's if you look at his history, even SC, I mean, when he followed Ted Tollner and Ted Tollner's, great human being and a great coach, but they were down and he had to rebuild SC. But that was what he thrived on was going into the two lanes, the U of A's, the Missouris, and
Yeah.
building it back up, right? I mean, that was kind of his pattern. Um, and so, you know, for the next coaches to be able to see that and like Coach Pinkel said, and we Coach Pinkel and I when he came in, he got hired, and you have to go through every staff member and talk to him.
Hmm.
I still remember taking in all my evaluations of every player, my recruiting area, and all that kind of stuff, and sitting down, in this chair that for 6 years I was looking across from the head coach, and that head coach was my dad, and it was
Yeah.
weird, but he
Yeah.
was very, very just gracious and I could tell and he's like, and we just talked and I told him up front, I said, Coach, I said, no way you're keeping me. I know you're not. I said, and I get it. And, he was very, very giving. And again, very gracious. And so what was it like having gone through a rebuild and having Coach Pinkel come in and now just elevating the program to a completely different level?
Well, um, I was kind of funny because I was the new guy, on their staff. They brought
Yeah.
everybody from their former place in Toledo. And so I was still the new guy, even though I was a Mizzou guy. We'd been there for 4 seasons with Coach Smith, and so or 5 seasons, I guess. But I was a new dude already in my hometown, and that was very weird. It was kind of awkward for the first, I'd say, maybe couple years, just because I had some really good friends like yourself, John Hoke, Andy Moore, different dudes on that staff that I still keep in touch with that they were really good friends of mine, Dave Tobe. So all those guys now are you know going different places, and here I am just sitting there. So it's pretty weird the first couple of years. Once I figured out kind of what Coach Pinkel was about and the guys on that staff were about, we didn't have an assistant coaching change from 2000 2008. We had the same exact staff, which is pretty unique in college football.
Yeah.
Nobody moved on, so it was probably a tribute to Coach Pinkel and also the success that was being built. But it was tough because you still until you got really, we got one player, Brad Smith from Ohio, that came in and really changed the program, changed the how we played. He could put the football in his hands, and he made all kinds of, things happen just
Right.
out of nothing, and so getting a guy like them allowed us to get other recruits down the road because once you can win and people can see you can win, Missouri's always been considered to be a sleeper job, but if you can get some quality Division I type dudes, five-star type players, then you can actually move up the level, and I think that's what, in, like, '05, '06, '07, we got some really good recruits and had a chance to compete at the national level, which is nice.
Yeah. And I mean, people, that taking it to the other level, like that presents a whole different batch of issues, expectations, demands.
Yeah.
Everything just gets heightened. I mean, from recruiting on. And so tell me this, because Brad Smith, when he came in and was the quarterback, I mean, he kind of changed. I don't know what happened. I can't believe that just one person, and Brad had a great career. But I mean, then you have, and I don't know the order, but you have Chase Daniels, you have Matty Mock, you have Drew Lock, and I'm
Yep.
sure there were some other guys I'm forgetting that were
Blaine
in there,
Gabbert.
but
Yeah, you got their
Blaine
orders right.
Gabbert,
Blaine Gabbert. Yep.
yep. Um, but you take it, and I know you at your time at Missouri. I mean, you coached the receivers for probably the longest time you were there, but then you coached quarterbacks for a long time. You special teams
Mhm.
coordinator for a couple years, and
Yep.
you had that opportunity. But from a recruiting standpoint, because I've always told people, I've had people ask me like, "Who's the best recruiter you've been around?" And you're at the top of that list. And, I don't know, and it just wasn't your ties to the state of Missouri or Kansas or, the St. Louis area, that kind of stuff. But, what was your approach in recruiting? And I know everything has kind of changed. But
Yeah.
when you were, I
Money's
mean,
changed
how
it.
did, yeah, yeah. How did you excel just as a recruiter? What was important for you to do to sell the University of Missouri, sell parents, counselors, coaches, grandparents?
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, but I think, I had some good guys helping me. Uh, with Coach Smith's staff, there's some good recruiters on that staff that you got to see how they did things. But I think I was pretty fortunate. I think we were fortunate because his Larry Smith's plan was to put you in an area and let you work the area. The problem with recruiting at the time kind of evolved to positional recruiting, where it's a receiver is in Tucson or a receiver's in, Colorado. If you're just recruiting receivers, you don't really have a connection. And I think that some of the best things we did at Missouri at the time, we kind of divided up where your recruiting area was. You stayed in the area, learned the coaches. You were watching
Yeah,
guys work out that were sophomores and freshmen that you could see that you knew they're going to be good in years to come. They saw you in school a lot. I was trying to be as visible as possible in those. You couldn't talk to kids back then that were freshmen, sophomores, but you could be around and they could see you. And so I always just tried to be around it. And even sometimes there were teams like Rockhurst in Kansas City or Blue Springs in Kansas City that didn't have a great player that year, but they're a great program. So I always go visit them as much as I would some school that had a guy coming up. So I was always in the schools that were successful, and primarily always had recruits. Maybe not every single year, but I just tried to be visible
yeah,
and try to be honest, and then have fun. I mean, there's a lot of put a smile on your face and go to work.
yeah. Well, you and Tony Alford are the two best
Yeah.
recruiters I've ever been around. And
Yeah, he's
Tony
good. I
was
mean, he's the
at
same.
the
He's that dude. Tony's that guy.
yeah,
He's always there. It seems like you turn around, he's always in your back pocket.
yep, yep. What are two things? Because there's a bunch of parents that listen to this podcast too, and I between friends, guys that I've coached, people that I've coached, word of mouth. I mean, there's quite a few athletes that I mentor, and a lot of it has to do, it does have to do with leadership and character, but a lot of it has to do with the recruiting process. And I kind of mentor
Yeah.
the families, and I know it's changed a lot, but um, there's so many outside influences now, and everybody thinks, these 7-on-7 coaches or trainers or this person or that person thinks that they understand how it really works. And so families are getting a lot of advice that's not accurate and it's not truthful. And I think there's a couple things that have never changed. But when you were recruiting at that level, what were the first two things that you wanted to know about a kid?
Yeah, I think, one of them was character, and was he a guy you could depend on when it comes down to 4th quarter when things were getting tough? Are you are you responsible? Are you gritty? Are you competitive? That, that says, because I think there's a lot of elite athletes like you're talking about. There's 7-on-7 coaches, there's a quarterback trainer, there's a receiver trainer, there's all these other trainer guys, and I think there's positives about that, but also,
Right.
getting away from the high school coach, listening to the high school coach, was huge. If a guy said, "Hey, he's probably an 8 out of 10 as competitor," which he's trying to tell me the guy doesn't he's not really a competitive guy.
Yeah.
And so you wanted to be in, arenas that had trust with the coaches, trust with the counselors, trust with the people that worked in the schools, and then what they would tell you, and then you'd have to believe that they are, telling you the truth, in the sense that, the guy's competitive. And I think if you look at, you know, Corby Jones, for example, who played
Right.
quarterback back in the day. I mean, as competitive as there ever was, and certainly was able to kind of pull people through it to victory because of, I think you're looking at competing and obviously the ability to withstand, uh, I don't know how to really say it, the ability to withstand the pressure of winning football. And I think that we always tried to find guys that won, that were successful, whether they played quarterback or whatever position. If you're successful at your high school, you're probably one of the guys pulling the train
Yeah.
forward, and you knew what it took, what kind of grind it took to be successful in college too. So be a competitor and have success. Those two things I think combined led guys to be successful in college.
How much when you were on the recruiting trail, how much did I mean, obviously grades came into account big, I mean, right? But could you associate guys that struggled with their academics with that competitive nature in regards to they may be a great player on the field, but if they're not taking care of their academics or they're having issues or they're not doing they're not going to tutor and they're not doing extra study and that kind of stuff to get their grades up. In your mind, was that kind of a precursor to your first thing that you said was, are you a guy that we can count on?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's how you do one thing is how you do everything. It's what you hear a lot.
I love that.
The
Yep.
truth is, there are some guys that maybe have poor um, academic standards where they are. They might have no help whatsoever. They don't really know what it takes to be, to be successful in the classroom. But if a guy has is just refuses to go to study hall, refuses to get extra tutoring or to do those things, that really says a lot about him. I think there's examples of guys being successful that maybe have a 2.4, 2.5 GPA in high school and go have a 4.0 in college.
Right.
Well, they just never really had the people there backing them up and
Right.
didn't have the structure. And when you have the structure and you have people trying to help you and you refuse to get the help, then it really tells me that you can't be trusted.
Yeah. Well, it's funny about that because a lot of people don't know this about Junior Seau, but he was a Prop 48 kid coming out of high school, which means back then a Prop 48 kid was basically your academically you didn't meet the NCAA standards academically, but you
Right.
could still come in, and I can't remember if you could be put on scholarship or not. I don't think so,
I don't
but you
think you
could still
could
go
back
to
then.
no, so, like, what Junior did is he was a Prop 48 kid, so he couldn't play his first year. He had to maintain a certain GPA in order to become eligible the next season. That kid, I mean, I say kid, that man he got a 4.0 both semesters. And the
Yep.
problem with him was in his household, the reason he was a Prop 48 kid is because in his household, they only spoke Samoan. He was Samoan, they only spoke Samoan. So, I
Have a
mean,
problem.
there's situations like that,
That's
whether
right.
it's this, from a support standpoint or culture standpoint that is happens a lot. I want to ask you about leadership. I want to start by asking you, and I know this is going to be hard because the men that you've coached, whether it's college or at Hutch and at Missouri or at the Chiefs, I mean, there's great ones. I mean, I'm sure you couldn't even name them all. And who were a couple of the who were the a couple of the best leaders that you've ever been around? That's my first question.
Yeah, I mean, most recently, obviously, with Kansas City, it's pretty obvious that
Yeah,
um, Pat Mahomes is about as good of a person as you'll ever be around. You know, he's engaging, he works his butt off, he cares about other teammates, he's always encouraging people. Um, just a tremendous leader, but he's character-wise, he's a great family person, he's a great father, and, you know, everybody in that building is on his shoulders, and he's able to handle that. The other
right,
guy in Kansas City that's so special, and you can see it day to day, is Travis Kelce. He's a connector, and I think that's huge with any level. But when you have a player like him who respects Coach Reed, he respects all the coaches, he emulates what the coaches are saying, but also he's connecting to the players on the team. So he's a direct connection between the coaches and the players to players. He's that dude that makes everybody feel comfortable. I mean, I've said it several times in the last year. I mean, there's going to be a guy undrafted from NAU might come to the Chiefs on the first day. Travis Kelce will walk up and shake the guy's hand, say, "My name's
that's
Travis
awesome.
Kelce," and the guy goes, Travis Kelce's talking to me, you know. But that
That's cool.
he's a connecting guy, and he helped so many kids mentally that were struggling. He would see that and go to them. So those two guys, leadership wise in Kansas City, were very special. Back at Mizzou, I mean, you look at to have a great team, you need the quarterback to be a good leader. Chase Daniel was as good as I've been around because he is he's doing everything right. He's hugging all the linemen before every we go up to the team period. He gives all five linemen a hug. I mean, he's a connector as well. But he was a great leader at Mizzou. There's so many. Brock Olivo pulled the train back when you were there. I mean, such a
Mhm.
unique guy. There's so many uh, great
Justin
players. Brad's
Smith,
Justin Smith.
yeah,
Yeah, there's uniqueness that
yes,
Justin Smith, Brad Smith, Chase Daniel, Brock Olivo. There's 5 to 10 guys that are uniquely leaders, and not always. They're all different, but certainly made a very big impression on everybody else.
yeah. You know, it's funny because Chase always reminded me of Brock Purdy. So Brock
Yeah.
from Gilbert played for Preston, obviously, you know that, Jones.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Braxton, you know, Brax was a year younger, but they played together for 2 years. And the thing about Brock that was interesting, and it reminded me of Chase, like none of these schools, you know, they waited so long because of the size and because the physical attributes. But I remember when we were at Mesquite High School and Jimmy was a head coach. And so Jim and Preston played each other. And um, Brock was a sophomore. And I remember him and Jimmy and I being on the sidelines. And I walked by him at one point and I'm like, that kid he has something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And every single intangible that makes a leader a great leader, he had.
Yeah.
And so I loved watching Chase play because I could see that. Um, what if you take all those guys because they're all from I got one question. Have you met Taylor Swift?
I slapped Taylor a high five
Okay,
at the
that's all I need to know.
post game party at in Vegas. It was fun.
That's funny. Okay, that popped in my mind. I thought it was pretty funny. Um, but what are some qualities that all of those great leaders that you've coached, you've had the opportunity to be around, and even the coaches that you know, because I know Andy. I don't know Andy Reid, but I know enough people that know him. You know, from guys like Terry Mahan who played at NAU who didn't even coach and played for him to you to Tobe to just a bunch of people. He
Yeah.
fits in that category too, um, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So what do all those individuals possess? What are some things that they possess that kind of set them apart and make them exceptional leaders.
Yeah, I think there is some fire in their belly that uh, makes them want to win. And whatever that means, is it work extra? Is it study extra? Is it be extra attentive if you're the player? As a coach, Coach Reed, because of his, you know, I guess his success at Philadelphia, certainly in Kansas City, the players had respect for him. And I know that when you're a leader like he is, there is one focus in the organization. I think it's very hard at all times to get everybody on the same page. Getting guys have some assistant coaches have agendas. There's all different people, but they have one focus, and it really comes with Coach Reed and all the administration there, the leaders there, the owners. They have one sole focus that they get through to everybody. Everybody buys into it. And
Right.
so when you got fire in your belly to be a winner and you have a purpose that everybody buys into, it's hard. The buy-in, I think, is very hard. But when you have guys like, Justin Smith that buy in, Jeremy Maclin that buy in, Denario Alexander, the guys at Missouri that are NFL type quality players that buy into your focus and your vision, then you have a chance to be successful. I think the leaders, when you have that one focus and whatever the drive might be, it might be that edge they want that year. They're all going together on the same direction. That's very hard to stop. And I think that if you look at the dudes that have done that and the success that I've been fortunate enough to be around, there's dudes that will do anything to win.
Yeah. What do you, because when I talk to head high school coaches and their staffs and stuff like that, something that I put at the forefront of all that stuff is the importance of speaking the same language.
Yeah,
And when I say that, guys look at me sideways like, what are you talking about? And so when you say you have one focus, you're talking about speaking the same language. Everybody needs to be on the same page. Specifically, if you're going to use terminology, you have to be on the same page. If you're going to enforce certain standards, everybody has to enforce it.
that's right.
Follow up, all that kind of stuff. Um, that goes into the one mission, doesn't it? Speaking the same language.
100%. I mean, if you ask guys to tuck their shirt in or touch the line or do things, this is how we do it. Okay, this is our standard. And when the players buy into the standard and the coaches, I'm talking about head coach, every assistant coach, then your leaders that can be developed, and then all the players on the team, when they all have the standard and the buy-in, and they tuck their shirt in, when a guy has his shirt untucked and nobody says anything to him, that's what that's how erosion happens within the organization. I
Yeah.
mean, in Kansas City, everybody wore white socks in practice. Okay, if a new guy came out with black socks, it wouldn't be Andy Reid saying you got black socks on, you need to go change them. There's 42 players going, hey, dude, you're not. This is how we do it. And I think that's pretty unique that, you know, putting your helmet on. If you watch the Chiefs, when they go out for the coin toss, every player has their helmet on. Most teams, they've got the NFL standard. They don't have their helmets on. When they get introduced, they have their helmet on. When they do these certain things, this is how we do it. And so whenever guys buy in like that, then that gives you a chance to be successful.
Yeah. This is kind of an unorthodox question, but I think it's important because I mean, obviously I look back at, you know, my coaching career um and we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but I've been through a lot of changes, had a lot of failures, made a lot of poor choices, made a lot of mistakes, have just pretty much done everything wrong there is to do wrong. And I think, the ability to learn from that and actually make significant changes in your life or how you do things or how you approach things or is essential in growth. So my question for you is kind of twofold, but I'll ask the first one. How has coaching changed your life as a husband, as a father, and now as a grandfather? And as a friend, as a son, I mean, all those personal things. How do you think coaching has impacted you and changed you for the better from that standpoint in those relationships?
Yeah, I think when you see players like Brad Smith that carry a Bible around their backpack, that there's so much you can learn from quality individuals. And I think being around just great men. I mean, Kent Lehman, we talked about Kent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many good people that uh, it's very funny. Even the guys I played with at Missouri, almost to a man, everybody was successful in some fashion in their life because of the structure and the standard and all the things you want to be around other players and coaches. uh, I think you see the good, and you can. There's some things. I mean, of 100 players on the football team, there's gonna be 5 guys that really need a lot of help. That
Right.
sometimes they can't even make it 4 years because of their struggles. But you see the good in people, and you see the really great qualities that guys, and you're going, man, I need to do what he's doing. And so I was very fortunate to be around not only coaches but players that just huge character young men that also made you want to be a better guy. And I think that's
Right.
the structure, and also touching lines, tucking your shirt in, doing that kind of stuff. When I'm jogging now, I still go touch the line because that's what you're used to doing. And I think it's certainly helped me.
All right. And then to follow up with that, how has, I mean, you and Sarah have been married, it sounds like 34 years now.
34 years this year.
Yeah.
34 years coming up next
Um,
month.
Sarah, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. Um,
She's upstairs.
um, but how has, being married for as long as you guys have, and you have a great relationship and you always have, um, and being a father, how did that change you as a coach? How you approached recruiting, how you approached, the college kids, the college game, and then how you approached coaching grown men?
Yeah. Obviously, the women in the coaching profession have to be special in a lot of
Yeah,
ways, and I think, running the household whenever you're in season and gone recruiting or whatever it might be, it takes a special person. And certainly we've I'm very fortunate to have picked out a young lady who said yes, that has been really good for us and great for our kids. As a father, I think, you got to see, again, good qualities. You got to see, when you're not around your kids, every single thing, can't go to every dance competition or every baseball game or whatever it might be. It kind of hurts you in your heart. So you really try to squeeze the best part of when you do have time together. And we always took a spring break. We always took a summer vacation together, because there's that 3 or 4 week window that you have some free time to go do things when you're not worried about who the next recruit is or what the next football game might be coming up. And so I think the cool thing for my family in particular, and so having gone drug through the 30 some years of coaching, at least Sarah Hill got to, be on a Super Bowl parade and hold the trophy. I mean,
that's awesome.
there's some cool things that when Travis Kelsey comes up and gives you a hug, "Hey, Mama Hill, how you doing?" And there's some benefit to that, but there got to be you got to be have a special relationship to be able to get through that for sure. And I think I was very fortunate.
How old's Trisha now?
She's 30. Well, turns 30 in a
Okay.
couple months.
That's what I thought. So I gotta tell you this, and we'll kinda end with this, and just how important you've been and influential, even though, we don't talk a whole lot, but still nonetheless. I mean, I remember, so Preston is a couple years older than Trisha, but
Hmm.
there's 2 people that in my life, growing up a coach's kid, like, I mean, and I have no qualms. It was the greatest life, but dad was gone a lot. And even when he was around, his mind was elsewhere, right? And that's a part of being that head coach at that
Yeah.
level. He came to everything he possibly could. But watching you as a new father, and then watching John Hoke and him as a father, that influenced me. I mean, that did more for me as a father, and how to approach fatherhood when we did have Preston and then Braxton and then Brody.
Mhm.
more than anybody I've ever been around. So I just want to thank you and Sarah,
Yeah.
because it
We had
was
some good
and
times. We
yeah, and it
well,
still is. I mean, I just my whole approach to being a father and being a coach. You guys, you and John were the key factors in that. So I love you for it
yeah.
and thank you for that. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I'll say this, we had, that your dad's staff at Mizzou have, Sarah and I called Andy Mueller, 2 weeks ago on the phone, and we have a running joke about this Boone County ham that we gave Mueller a Christmas gift one year. He set it on his refrigerator for like 5 years, and so we always talk about this Boone County ham that's still curing at the ripe
that
age
is
of
so
about
funny.
35 or whatever. But, yeah, John Hoke, it was neat to be able to see guys that I coached with, he was with the Bears and
Yeah.
different places, so I got to see him, across the sideline. He was in South Carolina his last
Mhm.
couple years in college, and so, Harry Heastand, Andy Moeller, the great quality dudes that, yourself that, was able to run across and still are friends with to this day.
Yeah. And Tabor too. Can't forget about Tabes.
Oh, yeah,
Can't
yeah.
forget about Tabes.
Poor poor Taves. Yeah, I've totally forgot about Taves. He's the best. I talked to him quite a bit. Was able to see him at the combine every year. Coached against him a
Yeah.
couple times in the NFL. But yeah, he's setting it. There's so many good dudes that we had the fortunate
Yeah.
ability to be around for sure.
Yeah. Well, Andy, I appreciate it. Love you and your family and
Same
thank you
here.
so much for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Glad you
Hey,
got to work.
just
Great to see you, and good
me
luck with
too.
your move.
All right. Hey, hold on a sec, okay?
Okay.